Spain has been loud in its condemnation of Israel's occupation of Palestinian lands. Its government has recognised the state of Palestine, cut arms sales to Israel, and regularly frames itself as a defender of international law and human rights. On the global stage, Madrid portrays itself as a moral authority, standing with the oppressed against occupation. However, there is one glaring problem with this narrative. Spain itself occupies territories that many will argue don't belong to it. While Spanish politicians demand that Israel end its illegal occupation, they conveniently ignore their own. Spain's hypocrisy is rooted in the selective morality. Occupation is wrong when others do it, but acceptable when it benefits Madrid. The left-wing Spanish government will attack other Western nations for their actions, yet they still hold Ceuta and Melilla, two enclaves fortified and fenced with barbed wire, sitting on African soil but administered as part of the European Union, who also deal just as much in double standards. Morocco has never recognised their sovereignty, and many African nations see them as leftover colonial possessions that should have been decolonised decades ago. The British and French had to give up lots. Spain should be no different. Spain insists they are integral parts of the nation, even though they exist on another continent separated from the Spanish mainland by hundreds of kilometres of sea. When Palestinians resist Israeli control, Spain calls it a struggle for freedom. When Moroccans raise the issue of Ceuta and Melilla, Spain calls it a threat to territorial integrity. The hypocrisy could not be more blatant. Beyond Ceuta and Melilla, Spain clings to several uninhabited rocks and islets off Morocco's coast. Their only purpose today is symbolic: to protect power, to remind the world that Spanish colonialism never truly ended. In 2002, a minor standoff over Hill Island nearly led to armed conflict between Spain and Morocco. The island is nothing more than a barren rock, but Spain sent in elite troops to defend its sovereignty. For a country that claims to champion international law, this obsession with clinging to overseas possessions is revealing. It is not law Spain defends, it is pride, status, and the remnants of empire. Spain often justifies its criticism of Israel on the basis of decolonisation and self-determination. Yet by every historical measure, Spain itself remains a colonial power. The people of Western Sahara, whose territory Spain abandoned in 1975 without granting independence, still await a referendum on self-determination, blocked in part because of Spain's failure to take responsibility for its past. It is easy to demand decolonisation when it applies to others, much harder when it requires confronting your own history. Spain's policy on Palestine is not humanitarian, it is political theatre. Criticising Israel costs nothing in Madrid's domestic politics, where sympathy for Palestinians runs deep, and where denouncing Israel plays well with the left and Arab-friendly constituencies. Spain wants to be seen as a progressive defender of human rights, a champion of the oppressed, and a voice for justice. Yet it remains a colonial power in denial, occupying foreign soil while condemning others for doing the same. The hypocrisy is not just political, it is moral. A nation cannot preach decolonisation while clinging to the spoils of empire. Spain's stance on Palestine is not one of principle, it is one of convenience. Spain often argues that many territories it holds have been under its control for centuries and are not occupied in the sense of recent military conquest, yet they believe the Falklands should be handed to Argentina. Britain have had the islands for just as long as Spain have had theirs, and a recent referendum saw the natives voted 99.8% to remain British. In the end, the debate matters because consistency, or perceived lack thereof, shapes credibility in international diplomacy. For Spain to maintain moral authority in criticising occupation, many argue it should also engage more openly with the debates about its own territories. In conclusion, disputed territories remain some of the most persistent sources of tension in global politics, driven by history, identity, and competing claims to land and resources. Resolving these conflicts requires more than military strength or unilateral action. It demands dialogue and diplomacy. Sustainable solutions often emerge through negotiation, shared governance, and economic cooperation that benefits all sides.